I want you to think about something real quick. Your phone rings. You look down, and the number calling you is your own. This was about 2 years ago, back when I was living alone in a rented house just outside of Dayton, Ohio. Small place, single-story gravel driveway, the kind of neighborhood where everybody keeps to themselves and nobody asks questions. I liked it that way. I worked night shifts at a distribution warehouse about 40 minutes out, so my schedule was flipped, sleeping during the day, leaving the house around 9 at night, getting back around 6 in the morning. It was a quiet life, lonely sometimes, but quiet. That particular night started like any other. I clocked out a little after 5:30, grabbed a coffee from the gas station on Route 40 and started the drive home. It was mid-November, so the sun wasn't even close to coming up yet. Just dark highway, the hum of my engine, and the radio cutting in and out between stations. About 15 minutes from home, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced at it. Unknown caller. I let it ring out. Figured it was spam. But then it rang again immediately. Same thing. I picked it up and hit decline without really thinking. 2 seconds later, it rang a third time. This time I actually looked at the screen. It was my number. My exact number. My name even showed up the way I had it saved, the little nickname I used for myself on an old contact entry. My stomach did something strange. I answered. Nothing at first. Just this low, hollow sound like the call was connected, but whoever was on the other end had their hand half over the mic. Then I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Controlled. Like someone trying very hard not to make noise. I said hello twice. Nothing. I hung up. I told myself it was a spoof call. I'd heard of that, scammers spoofing your own number to make you pick up. I repeated that logic to myself the rest of the drive home. By the time I pulled into my gravel driveway, I'd almost convinced myself. Almost. I sat in my car for a second longer than usual. The porch light was on, I always left it on, and everything looked exactly the way I'd left it. Front door closed. Blinds shut. Nothing out of place. I got out, crunched across the gravel, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The house smelled different. I can't explain it better than that. It wasn't a bad smell. It was just different, like the air had been moved around. Like someone had walked through every room and stirred it up. I stood in the doorway for a moment, just breathing it in, telling myself I was being paranoid. I locked the door behind me, dropped my bag, and went to the kitchen to pour a glass of water. That's when I noticed the chair. I have 4 chairs at my kitchen table. 3 of them were pushed in the way I always leave them. The 4th one, the one on the far side, facing the hallway, was pulled out about a foot, like someone had been sitting in it, like someone had stood up in a hurry. My mouth went dry. I grabbed the biggest knife from the block on the counter, which I'm not proud of saying because my hands were already shaking, and I started moving through the house. Living room, clear. Bathroom, clear. My bedroom, clear. I checked the closet, checked under the bed, checked the second room I used for storage. Nothing. I stood in the middle of my bedroom and let out this long breath. Nothing. I was alone. The chair probably meant nothing. I probably moved it myself and forgot. I put the knife on my nightstand, still within reach, and sat on the edge of my bed. That's when I heard the back door close. Not slam. Close. Soft and deliberate, the way you'd shut a door if you were trying not to be heard. I was on my feet before I even processed what I was doing. I grabbed the knife, went straight to the back of the house, and threw open the back door. The yard was empty. The wooden gate at the back fence was swinging, just barely, like it had just been pushed through. I called the police. I want to say I hesitated, but I didn't. I called them right then, standing barefoot in my backyard in November, knife in one hand, phone in the other. They came out within 20 minutes. 2 officers. They walked the property, checked the fence line, went through the house again more thoroughly than I had. One of them came back to me with something in a small evidence bag. A prepaid cell phone. Found it sitting on the shelf inside my storage room closet behind a stack of boxes, screen facing out. It was recording. Had been recording, they said, based on the battery level and the app running on it. Someone had placed it there to capture audio from inside my house. They dusted for prints, found a partial on the back door handle and a smudge on the kitchen chair. The detective who followed up with me a few days later said the spoof call, someone calling me from my own number, was likely meant to check if I was still at work. If I'd answered and said something that indicated I wasn't coming home yet, they probably would have stayed longer. But I'd answered and gone quiet. So they got spooked and left. He said it looked like someone had been planning to rob the place, that the recording device was there to map my schedule, figure out when I came and went, how long I was gone. They never found who did it. I moved out of that house within 3 weeks. I couldn't sleep there. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about that chair, about how someone had been sitting in it, in my kitchen, in the dark, waiting to hear my car pull up, about how close I had come to walking in while they were still there. And every now and then, late at night when my phone rings and I don't recognize the number, I still feel that same cold drop in my gut that I felt on that highway. I still answer. I just do it with the lights on now. And I always check the back door. If you've ever picked up a call from a number you didn't recognize and felt something in your gut tell you to hang up, trust that feeling. I didn't, and I've spent every night since wishing I had. I was 26, living alone in a one-bedroom apartment. I worked remotely, mostly nights, so my schedule was already off from everyone else's. I was used to being up at 2, 3 in the morning, just me, my laptop, and the hum of the AC unit that never quite cooled the place down enough. It started on a Tuesday, just a regular, forgettable Tuesday in July. My phone buzzed on the desk next to me. Unknown number. Arizona area code, same as mine. I almost let it go to voicemail. I usually did with unknowns, but something made me pick up. Maybe it was boredom, maybe just habit. Hello, silence. Not the dead kind, not a dropped call. There was something on the other end. I could hear it, faint background noise like a room with a television on low. The kind of ambient hum that tells you someone is there on the other end, just not talking. Hello, I said again. The call dropped. I stared at my phone for a second, then set it back down. Wrong number. Someone who accidentally hit call. I told myself a dozen different explanations and went back to work. They called again at 3:17 a.m. Same number. Same silence. Except this time, before I could say anything, I heard breathing. Slow, deliberate breathing, like someone trying very hard to stay calm. Who is this? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Nothing. Then the call ended again. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I ran the number through every reverse lookup site I could find. Nothing came back. It wasn't registered to a name, a business, nothing. Prepaid, probably, disposable. That detail sat in my chest like a stone. I told myself to forget it. 2 weird calls. Probably a scam setup, someone fishing for a response. I'd dealt with those before. I blocked the number and went on with my day. That should have been the end of it. 4 days later, different number. Different area code, Texas, but the same silence, the same breathing. I hung up immediately that time, blocked it. Then another number called, then another. Over the following 2 weeks, I received 11 calls. Every single one, silence, then breathing, then disconnected. Different numbers every time. And I started to notice a pattern that made my skin crawl. The calls were getting closer together. What started as every few days became every 2 days, then every night, then twice a night. I went to the police department and talked to an officer at the front desk. He was polite, patient, took down the numbers I'd written on a piece of paper, but he told me clearly and without a lot of cushion that there was nothing they could do. No threats had been made. No crime had been committed. He suggested I change my number. I did. I got a brand new number. Didn't give it to anyone I didn't personally know. Felt relieved for exactly 3 days. Then my new number got a call. Unknown. Arizona area code. I remember standing in my kitchen, staring at the screen, watching it ring. My whole body felt cold despite the July heat bleeding through the walls. I let it go to voicemail. No message was left, but I could hear, in the voicemail recording, 18 seconds of that same breathing. I started doing things differently after that. I stopped posting on social media. I put blackout curtains on my windows, not because I thought someone was outside, but because I needed to feel like I had control over something. I started keeping a log, every call, every time, every number. I had a notebook filling up fast. Then something shifted. The calls stopped being just phone calls. I came home one evening to find my doormat moved. I know how that sounds, a doormat, but I'm particular about things. I'd had that mat in the same position for 8 months. It was turned at a 45-degree angle, like someone had stepped on it wrong and never adjusted it. My neighbor across the hall was an older woman who barely left her apartment. I knocked on her door and asked if she'd seen anyone near my unit. She said she'd seen a man standing in the hallway that afternoon, just standing there. She'd assumed he was waiting for someone. He was standing in front of my door. I called the police again. This time a different officer. She was more engaged, wrote everything down, said she'd have a patrol car do passes by the building. She also told me to document everything, which I was already doing. The next call came at 1 a.m. I didn't pick up. It rang out, called back immediately, rang out again. Then a text came through from the number. It was my full name. That was it, just my name. Spelled correctly, no punctuation, like a confirmation. Like whoever was on the other end wanted me to know they knew exactly who they were calling. I was out of my apartment within an hour. Packed a bag, called my sister in Phoenix, drove there in the dark. I didn't care how it looked. Something in me had crossed a line from anxious to certain that whatever this was, it wasn't random. I had been selected. Deliberately, methodically, patiently. The police investigation that followed didn't give me clean answers. What they did find was that several of the numbers traced back to a cluster of disposable SIM cards purchased at a gas station about 4 miles from my apartment, purchased over the course of a month, one at a time in cash. The gas station footage showed a man in a hat and a mask. They never found him. I never moved back to that apartment. I broke the lease, took the financial hit, and relocated to a city where I didn't know a single person. Because at that point, I wasn't sure how he'd gotten my first number, let alone my new one. The only explanation that made sense was someone I knew or someone who had access to someone I knew. That thought poisoned everything. I've been in my current city for 2 years now. I haven't had a strange call since. But I still flinch when an unknown number comes through. I still pause before I answer. I still check that my doormat is exactly where I left it. Because here's the thing no one tells you about this kind of fear: it doesn't go away when the threat does. It just gets quieter. It moves in with you and learns to be still. And every once in a while, when your phone rings at an odd hour and the number isn't one you recognize, it wakes back up. And you remember that you never actually found out why you were chosen. You just know that you were. It started on a Tuesday night. I remember because I had work the next morning and I just set my alarm for 6. My phone was charging on the nightstand, screen down, and I was about halfway to sleep when it buzzed. I figured it was a spam call. You know how they are, random area codes, dead air, someone trying to sell you a warranty on a car you don't own. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something made me reach over and flip the phone. The number on the screen wasn't from a strange area code. It was local. And not just local, it was a number I recognized. It was my sister's number. She lived about 40 minutes from me outside Columbus, Ohio. We talked maybe twice a week, never at 2 in the morning. I sat up and answered. Silence. Not the kind where the call drops, but the kind where someone is there, breathing, just not talking. I could hear something in the background, what sounded like a television, low and distant. You okay? Then a voice. But it wasn't my sister, it was a man. He said my full name, first and last. Calm. Like he was reading it off a piece of paper. I went cold. I asked who he was and he didn't answer that. Instead he said, "You should go check on your sister." Then the line went dead. I sat there in the dark for probably 30 seconds just staring at my phone. I told myself it was a prank. Wrong number. Some guy who had the wrong contact and spoofed a number. I've heard of that happening. I tried to talk myself down. Then I called my sister back. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail the second time, like the phone had been turned off between rings. I want to be honest, my mind went to the worst possible place. I threw on a jacket and my shoes, and I was in my car before I even fully processed what I was doing. It was cold out, February, and the roads were empty. The drive to her house felt twice as long as it normally did. Her car was in the driveway. The porch light was on. Nothing looked wrong from the outside, but nothing being wrong from the outside doesn't mean anything. I knew that the second I knocked on her door and she didn't answer. I used my spare key. The TV was on in the living room. Same low background sound I'd heard on the call. I called her name twice, and then I heard her voice from the back bedroom, groggy and confused. She'd been asleep. Her phone had died sometime before midnight and she hadn't noticed. She was fine. I stood in her hallway, heart slamming, and I didn't know whether to feel relieved or more scared. Because here's the thing, if she was fine and her phone was dead, then how did someone call me from her number? I didn't tell her what happened that night. I made up some excuse about having a bad dream, and she gave me that look siblings give each other when they think you've lost your mind. I drove home and didn't sleep. The next morning I looked up the number that called me, same digits as my sister's contact. I called my carrier, and they told me it was possible for someone to spoof a number, to make it appear as though the call was coming from a different source. Completely illegal, completely possible, but that didn't answer the real question. How did he know my name, both names? How did he know she was someone worth checking on? How did he know I'd go? I let it sit for about a week. Told myself it was random, a sick prank from someone who got lucky with the details. Then it happened again. Different night, different time. It was early evening, just after 7. I was eating dinner. My phone rang and the number on the screen was my own. My exact number calling me. I know how that sounds. I picked up anyway. Same man. Same flat, calm voice. He said, "You didn't tell her." That was it. 4 words, then nothing. I stood up so fast I knocked my chair back. I checked my locks. I checked my windows. I grabbed the bat I keep behind my bedroom door and I went through every room in my apartment with it, which I realize sounds like something out of a movie. But when you're actually scared, you don't think about how it looks. Nobody was there. Of course nobody was there. But that call, those 4 words, meant that someone knew I had gone to my sister's house. Someone knew I hadn't told her about the first call. Someone had been watching how the situation played out. I filed a report with the police. The officer who took it was polite, wrote everything down, and I could tell by his expression that he wasn't sure what category to put this in. No direct threat had been made. No crime had been committed that they could clearly point to. He told me to document everything and call back if it escalated. It didn't escalate. The calls stopped. That was 8 months ago, and I haven't heard from that number or any unknown number since. My sister still doesn't know. I almost told her a few times, sat across from her at dinner with it right on the tip of my tongue, and then I thought about what she'd actually do with that information. Worry, lose sleep, look over her shoulder. I didn't see the point. But here's the part I keep coming back to, the part I can't make sense of no matter how many times I run it through my head. The first call told me to go check on my sister. That's it. No threat. No demand, just go check on her. Why? If someone was trying to scare me, there are 100 more effective ways to do it. If it was random, how did they have my name, my sister's number, and knowledge of what happened after? And if it wasn't random, if someone was watching, if someone knew, then what did they want me to find when I got there? What was supposed to be wrong that wasn't? I don't have an answer to that. I'm not sure I want one. What I do know is that I charge my phone every night. I keep the bat where I can reach it. And whenever my phone lights up after midnight, I feel that same cold drop in my chest, the one I felt the night I heard my own name in a stranger's voice. If you made it this far, hit that subscribe button right now, leave a comment below. I read every single one. And if you enjoy these stories, hit that like button. I'll see you in the next one.